Good evening. This is the Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024 regular meeting of the Economic Development Commission. It is 5:31 p.m. and I would like to welcome those who are joining this meeting. It does not appear we have anyone on the phone right now, but in the room we have Jean Wilczynski, Mona Colwell, Scott Smith, John Stratton, Jeff Hartman, Joe Pamian, myself, Cheryl Poirier, and our faithful scribe, Jennifer Tiamato. Welcome, everyone. And excused from our meeting is Wendy Russell and MJ DeRizio. I am expecting someone to join us to discuss the Osprey Festival, so that will either be under public comment or new and other business. Okay, the first order of business is approval of the March 6, 2024 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, Jean is seconding. Any discussion, any corrections, additions? All right, all in favor of approving the March 6 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Okay, thank you very much. First, next we have public comment. Is there anyone on the phone now for public comment? And we have no members of the public here, so I will consider that completed. Update. This is going quite quickly. The first update we usually get is from MJ DeRizio, who isn't here because of a funeral she needs to attend. So she's usually pretty good about sending in real estate updates. She did not this time. So we're going to pass that and hear about it next month. The next order of business or next update is the Eastern Regional Tourism District. That is Wendy Russell, who sent me a quick update basically about the grants. The Eastern Regional District handed out $70,000 in grants. Some of the organizations in Old Lyme that received grants were Blackhall Outfitters, and then Florence Griswold Museum and Lyme Art Association. I think that is it for Old Lyme. So we did have 3 organizations get grants for marketing, tourism, and bringing visitors to Old Lyme. So we want to congratulate them on those grants. And if anyone knows of organizations involved in tourism in Old Lyme that are having events of interest to the local lodging and tourism organizations, something that Wendy can put forward for their newsletter, please let Wendy know about that. Okay, River Cog Regional. That's Jean.
Okay, so I was just going to pass out one item that we discussed and looked at the last meeting was on March 20th, and the next one will be April 16th. So it is just a list of regional partners and sort of projects that are in the works. And one of the things that is interesting is there is some overlap between the River Cog and then, which we're part of, River, I don't know what it stands for, Council of Government.
Yes.
So our regional group, there are other regional groups and they don't all have the same boundaries. So for example, if you look at the tourism, they list central tourism. So I said, well, we're not in the central tourism district, we're in the eastern, which they noted. And then the workforce development is, I think that is aligned with some of the community colleges. So our regional workforce alliance is actually for Old Lyme is in Norwich, we're not under the central one that's out of, so there's some overlap, and we all did acknowledge that there's a need to make sure that we are collaborating, you know, in those areas as well. And on the tourism sense, I think the person who was the head of the Eastern Regional Tourism Group was moved up to the state.
Oh, yeah, Rachel and.
And so I'm not sure we have a person appointed there yet. I'm not sure
Oh,
about that.
I assume so. I don't know that for a
That's
fact,
what,
but
they weren't sure who the new person was
Okay.
at that was a couple weeks ago. So, that'll be a question for Wendy. I guess.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
she had mentioned that, I think, at the last meeting she was
Okay.
at, that may have happened. But,
And can I just add,
Yeah.
also, we're part of the Eastern Connecticut Arts Alliance, if you will, which is Cultural Coalition, as opposed to Central Connecticut or the Shoreline Arts Alliance. So because
Right, so
we're
there's
on the
some-
river, but.
yeah, so there's some interesting, like, different boundaries. Not everything flows on the same boundaries throughout the state, which seems weird to me, but we just have to be cognizant of that somewhat. So on the areas that the group sort of talked about what areas of focus we should look at, and two that jumped out that we were going to talk about at our next two meetings were the workforce development. And the plan originally was to have that on our next meeting, but it turns out that April 16th is also the same day as the Connecticut Workforce Summit, so that wasn't going to work. So the plan now is to have the next meeting focus on housing and to invite the RiverCog Housing Committee to talk about some of the projects and focuses so we're not, you know, working at odds with each other on different committees. So, and interestingly, our Affordable Housing Commission is currently having a joint meeting with zoning and planning tonight downstairs. That's one of the reasons we're up here. I think that's great. I wish I could have gone because I probably want to hear about that, but I'm going to read their minutes and probably talk to Mike Poliano, who's the head of that commission, just to make sure that I'm fully aware of where our town is on that area. One of the biggest challenges for all these projects that people propose is they have to actually fit into all the different towns' plans of conservation and development. If you're doing a regional project, it has to meet everyone's needs, and that is, you know, a lot to go through. So you can see why sometimes projects take a long time to come to fruition if everyone has to approve it. So anyway, the next meeting is Tuesday the 16th, and it's going to focus on housing. So should be interesting.
So do you think you will be given an orientation on what's happening in housing at that meeting, or is it a problem solving?
Yeah, I think it's more what they're working on, and then
what RiverCog is?
What RiverCog's housing committee.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
So there's a regional housing committee, just like there's a regional economic development committee. So there's they have a number of different committees. I think they have a workforce. You know, who knows? I don't know all of them, but there's a number of them. And so making sure that you're not stepping on each other's toes and trying to do the same project in two different ways and things like that, I think is important. So that's where we're sort of starting.
Do you know where the Roger Tory Peterson Center for this new, rather substantial grant fits in here? Is it arts or is it environment?
Well, it would be environment. That's a NER grant.
Yeah. So I'm just saying there's a very substantial influx of grant money.
Right, and I would not assume that it was arts related. But
No, I would just say where. You know, and so that that's not part of this kind of planning. You know, so the money, as you said, comes from somewhere. It's a very good thing. But it also doesn't seem to be aligned with stuff that the town is doing. Or is it? What do you know?
Well, I can find out more about it. I think it's really about the river itself and what they're doing on their own property as opposed to changing anything in the town. But I can certainly learn more. I plan to meet with Alicia next week.
It is a kind of industry. an environmental industry that I think we should support and pay attention to.
Right, definitely.
So,
Okay,
thank you.
sure. And then, because there was so much interest at our last meeting about workforce development, it sounds like you'll get an orientation, I'm using the word orientation,
Right.
but a lowdown on what is
Right.
happening regionally about that?
Yes, probably in May.
Okay. And that Workforce Alliance, did they tell you what that is? Is that regional thing? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I can find out.
There's some focus on workforce development, workforce planning. Obviously, I think they're situated at community colleges, so
Oh, okay.
that's some of their focus is training and workforce development, I think.
Interesting. Okay. Does anyone have other questions for Jean?
Is somebody from the group going to that workshop, the Workforce Alliance workshop?
Oh, you mean the one that is
Connecticut.
Like the
on the same day as
Yeah.
Jean's meeting?
Yeah.
Good
So,
question.
that is probably the Workforce Alliance group. Like, there's a bunch, like this one is, they're all regional, so it's a statewide conference. So yes, the local Workforce Alliances will be attending. Will anyone from
From the Regional Economic Development?
the folks who are representing the Workforce Alliance, there is a Workforce Alliance representative on the commission, yes. And that's one reason why she spoke up and said, we can't have the workforce discussion on that date because I won't be here. I'll be at the other event.
I'll just ask one more question.
Yep.
Jean, I don't see utilities on this. I guess about, I don't know, might be 2 years ago, I wrote up a white paper.
You discussed that at the last meeting. We know what the white paper is.
Okay.
So.
The question is it worth reintroducing it? Would the River Cog have
So
any
if
interest?
you were to look at their entire workforce development strategy, there is some discussion of infrastructure, and it is more than just transportation.
Okay.
So I think
Okay.
it is included. I'm not sure that it's on any of this specific project list that we looked at, but it is in the River Cog
So my
comprehensive economic development strategy.
question is, should I make another go at tendering my white paper on municipalizing the utility infrastructure of multiple towns as kind of following the model of like the municipals?
I think there's no reason not to forward that to the head of Rivercog, which is Sam Gold.
Yeah, I believe that's
Sam
correct.
Gold.
Okay.
Um,
I will send it to the
and I will find you his email address.
okay.
Okay. And I'm going to come back to that, I think, later
Okay.
when we talk about blight. Okay. Anything else?
That's all I had.
Okay, great. Thank you. Shoreline Gateway Committee. Joe.
Okay. The Gateway Committee had a special meeting which I wasn't able to go to. It was not on the calendar. And a strenuous effort was made successfully to get zoning to vote in favor of a moratorium on more of these bloody, well, whatever, be recorded. I think they are bloody storage units because there's just too many of them. So anyway, that was the most momentous thing that occurred. For the coming meeting, I will, it's on my to-do list, I will be checking in with the blight enforcement officer of East Lyme. I gotta figure out exactly who that is and see, I'm going to report to the Gateway Committee rather. I'm going to report on, how well has the blight ordinance in East Lyme worked. I've got my draft blight ordinances already sort of drafted, and I'd like to keep that momentum. The Gateway Committee is most interested, of course, in the Gateway area for blight remediation, but I feel like that has to be a town-wide ordinance. So, And the big challenge is being reasonable and enforceable. I mean, I think those are the two criteria that really have to get met.
I think also putting money into it, because
Yes,
we would need
yes.
either more of the
Yes. It's like-
enforcement officer's
Yes.
time or a second person.
Well, that's exactly going to be the biggest part of my
Yeah,
question is,
yeah.
has it been enforceable, and what's the requirements in terms of staffing to have an enforcement officer and so on.
Okay, good. Just another aside,
Yeah.
people who drive on Shore Road, where
We've
the
seen the deforestation.
yes, that. And also, there was some graffiti on the side of
Cherry
Stones,
Yeah.
and Martha got in touch with that property owner, and it was taken care of pretty quickly.
Good.
So I think it's good that we're staying on top of that sort of thing, broken window theory and all. So, but hopefully the Shoreline Gateway Committee's work will
Make things better.
improve things down there as well.
One hearsay thing that this was strictly hearsay from a townsperson, that there was an effort to set up some kind of a professional office suite along Shore Road in the Gateway area. And I don't know, I have a feeling it had to do with what zoning would allow or not allow, and the proposed project just walked away. And this gets back to the issue of, we shouldn't be driving away. We should figure out, okay, what do we need to do here to stay within the boundaries of, we can't have a free-for-all on loosening up regulations. But by the same token, don't let a live one walk away when you've got derelict properties that want to be replaced, with something that would not be objectionable.
And I think it depends on the property as well, because I know at one point they were looking at the old Gulf Station, which of course Rand Automotive is in now, and it was a matter of cleanup and water behind that building. So I think that had a lot to do with having people, increasing the size of that building.
Does anyone know about the Simpson Healthcare building? It used to be the South Shore Landing. I mean, all I see is dumpsters, but they keep the property beautifully.
Yeah.
But
they've been updating the interior.
I see no motion. So I know that something's going on, but what?
I think they've just been updating their carpets and things like that. I don't know if
There's no
no.
There's no people. Once in a while, there's a car.
Yeah, but they just put out new signage for the businesses there. I think it's hard these days to look at cars in a parking lot because so many people work remote now, right?
Precisely. Are they going to keep the building or plan to sell it? That's an open question. Does not need to be answered here.
Right.
But that would take care of a professional building issue.
Yeah.
I reached out to them about 2 months ago with another question, and I didn't hear back, but it seems active to me. They just repaved, they brightened up the front, they have the new signage with, I think there's lighting on the signage, but I think it looks a lot better than it did 2 years ago. So
I'm not surprised if it didn't get back to you, because I previously, for this commissioner and others, tried to get in touch with them.
yeah.
And I received no response.
Okay. Anything else for Joe and Shoreline Gateway?
All like that.
Okay. Halls Road Improvement. They have something on their web page about their latest plans. I sat in with Edie Twining doing a presentation to the Arts District heads, like the director of the Flo Grizz and Art Association and the Academy and RTP, Estuary Center, and just giving them an idea of where things are and how they're coming along. So I think they're just looking at grants coming in and going back to zoning later in the year. So there's really no update there. Okay, America 250 in Old Lyme. This is the 250th anniversary of the country. I went to a day-long program up at Central Connecticut, put on by Connecticut Humanities and State Office of the Arts about what their statewide plans are. I presented to the Board of Selectmen. They approved that. I think that had already happened at our last meeting. But anyway, the next step is we're going to be seeking out committee members. I spoke with Martha, and we're going to do a steering committee, and then under that, different subcommittees. One being festivities, one highlighting our community's heritage stories, one education, one civic engagement, like getting people more involved in civic engagement. So I need to write up a one-page background for that application process. So I think there's going to be lots of ways for a multitude of people to be involved in this, and I was really impressed with the presentation in February on, how this isn't just going to be fireworks and tall ships. It's going to really engage people in how everyone has an American story, and making everyone feel like this is their celebration, whether they arrived on these shores last week or 300 years ago. So it sounds very exciting. Okay, zoning moratorium, new and other business.
Yes.
The zoning moratorium you mentioned, I delivered this carefully crafted statement on my little index card, so I got it right. So as you mentioned, they have a 6-month moratorium on storage unit applications, but of course the ones currently in process are, outside of that moratorium.
So what are they doing in the 6 months? Are they consultants to look at the zoning laws? What are they doing?
They are considering how to rewrite specifically regarding storage units. And then my understanding is from something said in that zoning meeting that they have a budget line item for the upcoming year to bring someone in to help update the zoning, ordinances and all, which I want to say they said they haven't updated them since 2014, other than, little things getting added here and there, like Halls Road or whatever. So they are going to be working on zoning in the coming year once the new fiscal year starts in July. That is what I got out of that meeting. It was mentioned as an aside. All right, the state had a tourism conference that I attended last week, and very briefly, there are a couple of new ways of looking at tourism. People find a town they want to live in based on where they visit. And you probably know this about yourselves, or you see other people visiting a small town or a town or city, and they walk by a real estate office and they look at all the, pictures of houses in the window and think about, how nice it would be to live in this town. And that is one of the trends that DECD at the state level, economic development, they're looking at drawing people to Connecticut. Towns you want to visit become towns you want to live in. So that's one concept. The other thing that's kind of changing, slowly over time, so it's not breaking news, but they really are recognizing that many people visiting towns, whether they live in Connecticut or outside of Connecticut, the destination is a restaurant. And then they plan their day around the restaurant. So again, think about yourself. And I know my husband and I do this. We have our list of restaurants we want to go to. And then what else is there? Oh, the Bruce Museum is there, or, whatever in that town. And you plan the town visit around the restaurant. So I think that is something we need to keep in mind as we look at our own assets and, what's going on Halls Road or down in the Shoreline Gateway area, that we want to play whatever role we can as EDC. We don't have a lot of power in this, but in attracting things like restaurants and specialty retail, that sort of thing, where people will come here as a destination. So I thought that was kind of interesting coming out of the tourism conference. There was also a blight conference.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Kathleen Tracy went,
Yeah.
and myself. So she should be reporting to you all on what she learned. And one of the things I know she's looking at is how to get Hartford Avenue back on track to get state historic landmark designation at the state level, not at the federal level. So she's talking to the State Historic Preservation Office about that. I think that was one of the outcomes. And I don't have my notes here with me tonight, but there were lots of discussions about incentives and ways to draw people to an area. And to your point, one of your points about utilities, Joe, is you have to have great Wi-Fi, electric, and everything.
And also not priced to where it's the most expensive in the United States of America.
Right. So, okay. New and other business. I was expecting Mr. Frank Pappalardo from the Shoreline Gateway, but also Soundview Commission to be here, but he lives far away. I bet the weather is keeping him from coming down here. The Osprey Festival, one of the things I needed him to share with us is the date. I understood it was supposed to be the second weekend in September, but I don't have that
Take a look and see if I can.
finalized. But he went before the Board of Selectmen and perhaps Board of Finance to get funding for this Osprey Festival. And this festival happened 5 or so years ago. Pandemic was 4 years ago, so longer ago than
It was like
27. That sounds right, yeah. So that was a while ago now. It was put on by the Chamber of Commerce, which Jean was a part of, and
I wasn't here for it, so I don't really know anything
Okay.
about
I think,
what transpired.
but I believe it was food trucks and vendors and live music.
Mr. Pappalardo participated.
Okay.
His traveling,
Minstrels.
rock band.
Okay.
Seriously, it's
Yeah.
good.
Good.
It brings vitality. It also plugged in, not the same date, with the July 4th parade in Soundview, other Soundview locality things, which involve the renters, the visitors. So, none of these are huge, but they're fairly large and they do bond the community, so that people who are visiting not only Soundview, but the other beach communities walk over and they bring their kids.
Right.
And they do desirable things like that.
Okay.
So it's important in the long run for Soundview. And now that the landscape, so to speak, of Soundview has changed quite a bit without the decaying buildings, still brings questions to my mind about lamenting about lack of parking. Now we have lots of room for parking.
Okay.
Which would require town attention.
So in terms of the Osprey Festival, this year, the idea of it being the second weekend in September is to extend the season and encourage the businesses to stay open.
Correct.
The Board of Selectmen said this Osprey Festival Committee has to include representation from the Economic Development Commission, and then the Shoreline Gateway Committee and Soundview Commission, some residents, that sort of thing. So, Mr. Papalardo emailed me wanting to come this evening and tell us about the Osprey Festival, but to also see who on the commission would be able to be a part of this committee. And I don't know how often they meet, but I did share with him in the past couple of months that we could definitely market the Osprey Festival. We have that capability. We're not as well suited for working that day or, doing that kind of effort of putting on a festival, that we have trouble with that. We're getting the marketing done. So I think what I'd like to do, if anyone would like to be a part of the the Osprey Festival committee, let me know. You can email me or tell me at the end of this meeting or right now. And otherwise, I will see if Mr. Papalardo can give us a little write-up how often the committee meetings are and that sort of thing. So, how does that sound?
Wonderful.
Okay. All right, very good. And I'm sure, to our mission statement, we say we're one of the three main categories or roles we're going to play in the town is collaborating with other commissions and constituents to foster the business community in a way that preserves the charming character of Oakland. So being on that committee is a great way to collaborate, right?
Yes.
Okay. Next item up, economic development plan development, two developments there. Everyone has a copy, front and back, of the vision statement. Economic metrics. So, Scott, am I correct in saying you're waiting on the state to figure out
Get
this?
updated numbers, because the numbers that I have are at least 2 years old.
Okay. All right. So perhaps
They
we're
go
going to...
back quite a way, as you know. You look at
Yeah.
them, They go back to like 2010.
Okay. And, Jeff, I don't know if we talked about this prior to your joining the commission, but I think they're actually in this document that we tell you what those are. But what I did on this is I broke out our vision. What do we have? We have 4 sections to our vision, and we should really have some metrics or measures of realization to help us track, are we moving in the right direction? Or is the town, I should say, is the town moving in the right direction? So I just put in a bunch, those bullet points are just my brainstorming on what some metrics would be. And, we have I don't want to belabor this meeting with a lot of time going through all 4, but can we take one of these and think about what would be a good couple of metrics to look at for one particular part of our vision? If anyone has a preference on what we start with, I'm, happy with talking about any of these. And I'm going to say, housing market, why don't we wait till MJ is back
Yes.
to talk about that? Okay.
I guess the one metric that I'm interested in is what is the outflow or not outflow of young people in our town.
Okay.
I think that's a major concern. As the population moves away, the town disappears. So
Can we attach that to one of these?
I'm trying to think where it fits.
Would it be that last one, economic phase? Or it might be housing. I think we probably can't have that on an annual basis, but we could certainly look at the census. That one item you brought with you last week, 2 months ago,
Yeah.
It was that state index, and it had age ranges, but I think that was from the census. I mean, you could look at how the 40 to 49-year-olds changed over 10 years, but it's not going to give you,
The demographics and age distribution, but it doesn't do it by, just the 2017 to 2021.
About that long ago, a speaker from the DECD, an economist, working economist, spoke in Mystic at a morning meeting, and then, at my invitation, spoke to the chamber here. He had a somewhat somber message, and it was exactly that. Population of the state declining, or maybe going up a little bit, but much more important was the loss of the purchasing power of the younger group, the ages 25 to 35, when people are buying things, buying houses, going up to houses, acquire the things to live on. So you can get a very different view, depending on whether you look at the placid surface of the Ulsters, but underneath things that are happening. Yes, people are moving in, but it's a net loss in terms of vitality, let's say, and change.
I heard
That message was well received. I mean, people paid attention to it. But what exactly can we do about it was the general feeling.
Well, and I think the state in general is working very hard to attract younger. The new campaign, the new head of, Rachel is the new head of tourism, and then above her is Anthony is his name. I don't know if you know him, but he is a complete disruptor. And this tourism conference, in the past, it was, very a typical professional conference. And this conference last week started with a rock band.
Oh, wow.
And it was flashy, and it was just, it's the whole new message. They're just really, and it's Make It in Connecticut. So they had Find Your Vibe in Connecticut, and they decided now everyone's found their vibe, so now you have to stay here in Connecticut. That was what they were joking about. But also, John, I heard on the radio this morning that more young adults are living at home with their parents than not since the 1940s. That was the last time.
It's a depression.
Right.
Yeah.
Housing affordability.
Yeah, no, it's a real issue.
None of my kids live with me, and none of them live in Connecticut.
I have one that came back, one of three that came back.
Yeah, I had one at four.
She was true away for many years and came back to Connecticut, but it's different.
But it also speaks to their...
You have to look forward to, you have young children, you gotta keep them here.
Yeah, that's exactly my feeling.
Well, I mean, as a family that, I'm a first-generation immigrant in America. My parents came here very poor from Finland. We lived with multiple generations. We continue that trend. I think it's that Americans in general stop that trend. In my house, my dad lives with us when he's in America. My kids are still, some still in school, but, I don't know. So I just see things differently. When I was young, my family, we lived with my grandparents, and it was normal. Americans don't think it's normal. They want to use up their parents' money so they can go live on welfare in a assisted living facility. I don't see those things. Like, I see things different. So I talk to a lot of people about those things. I know you're making faces, but I talk to a lot of people about what they want to do, so that their parents can be living in spaces. And I don't know. I just see things different. So I hope there's more of that trend, because then we're going back to building those families and having the generations. I personally prefer it, because I don't like the American model where you ship off your parents or you ship off your kids, or you can't wait until your kids leave the house. And just things that I see here that are different from countries like Finland.
And I think one of the things going on with this trend that's happening now is it's an economic issue for a lot of people, and it speaks to the purchasing power that you mentioned, John. You know, typically that younger demographic has the purchasing power, but they don't have, I would assume.
Graduating college with higher, college debt, and the ability to afford a house is getting later and later. And that's contributing, I think, to people.
No, I mean, the college debt is oppressive. I mean, my kids are fortunate. College got paid for, there's no doubt. But my youngest is still looking to buy a house, and it isn't that they don't have the down payment. The inflation of house values is so bad, and of course, this is my youngest lives in Boston. So if they're renting in Boston, they're ready to buy a house, but what would sell here for, $350,000 because it's a falling down shack is $900,000 up there. It's nuts, and they're very afraid to take a position if this is going to collapse.
Yeah, and the affordability gap between renting and owning is now significant. It's about 30%.
Yeah.
Right, we're living in a bad cycle. We're living like 2007, 2008 all over again. And even when my husband and I bought our first home in the 90s, it was hard to buy a house in Connecticut then. Like, we were from Fairfield County, and we ended in Rhode Island, because it was easy to buy a house in Rhode Island, and it was hard to buy one here. And now where we bought in Rhode Island, it's very, very hard to buy there. It's really funny to see how ridiculously expensive Rhode Island is compared to Connecticut right now. So people move.
Some of it too is where are your jobs? Not everyone can work remotely, and if you're in an industry that's not in Connecticut.
And also, the stability of former Connecticut industry has evaporated.
Yes.
So that things that, I get a good job at the boat company, well, it's very stable now. 20 years ago, suddenly it wasn't stable anymore at all.
Right.
And, you've done a great job for us, sorry. Yeah, but I'm 47 years old, I have a family.
Downtown New London has a lot of housing going in because of EV.
That's the jobs a year for the next 5 years.
And those will be stable jobs, and you're assuming that the federal government remains stable.
I think that actually that's the opportunity for us, because I look at Boston, is booming, right? Well, the more, at least me, I'm not an economist, but the big dig, how many billions got pumped into Boston? It didn't evaporate. So $10 billion of federal money, taxpayer money, landed in Boston.
Yeah, the multiplier impact on direct construction and direct job creation.
It just kept going.
Yeah.
And EV is that for us.
Correct.
We've got to tap it. We've got to figure out how to tap it. And I really feel the key is for our youth not to leave town, but rather to strike out on new things that they can do if they're given the skills to do it. And, I've been teaching college. I'm going to retire from teaching at the end of this year. But I ran an engineering practice for 35 years, and I've been, of the last 11 years, I've been teaching. I taught at CCSU in the evening when I was still running my business, and I've been teaching for 6 years at the Coast Guard Academy. And what I have seen is that even with engineering education, we're making it too easy for these young people to make a living. May not be great, it may not be bad, but the point is, it's too easy to just slide into some slot. Whereas once upon a time, and it was particularly the immigrants, and I'm the same thing, my parents were off the boat, I wasn't, but, the immigrants are hungry and willing to work, and next thing you know, there's things happening. And I think we need to figure out how to get our kids back on that track. And I think it's possible, I really do. I think what's happened is the college programs have facilitated too much of an easy path to make a buck. It may not be adequate, but it's also livable.
And, I want to go back over the evanescence of corporate jobs. And I don't mean necessarily office jobs, but technical jobs. So if the company decides that it's no longer going to have your assembly facility here, and they're going to move it down south, it's gone. And you have a choice. You can stay and fumble around for something else, maybe, or you could go somewhere else. And the larger corporations, I'm thinking of Pratt & Whitney, et cetera, and numerous places in Fairfield County that have either publicly or quietly decamped to somewhere else, taking with it job opportunities. So fine, you can get a job, but you have to move with the work, except you become a kind of technological sharecropper.
Well, that's exactly what happened.
So,
Yeah. When I first set up shop as a consulting engineer in Connecticut, which was 1984, I ended up with my book of business. I had 30 significant manufacturing clients in Connecticut that I was doing engineering for. They progressively have all offshore. And they were names that you would recognize. I mean, Remington Shaver, Bridgeport, W.E. Bassett that made trim nail clippers, all kinds of things.
they used to have a big massive caster, things on the side of the train.
Companies making automotive parts, companies making aircraft parts, and what happened to all of them? Most of them were family-held businesses, made it to the third generation. Private equity comes along, kids, all they know is affluence, they just want to cash out because running the business is too much work. It's like Benny's department store, why is it gone? It was a thriving business, and it's gone because the kids didn't want to work. The proprietor was like 90 years old and still running the place. So I think therein is kind of what we have to figure out is how the heck do we take advantage of the billions that are pouring into EV, and how do we leverage that, and particularly with skills. We need to give the kids skills, and I'm now convinced it has to happen in the elementary through high school years before they go to college. They need to have exposure to things that they can do, things that they can make, things that they can envision that nobody's made. And I'm thinking, how the heck do we do that?
A lot of the changes that have taken place over the last 20 years in education have squashed that.
They have squashed it, exactly.
Hopefully with involvement now with people that are trying to get that back, because people are seeing that. Like I know there's some movement on changing things as far as what tests kids have to pass schools in Connecticut. And so there should be major movement in that area where kids go back to independent thinking and not just learning for a test.
I mean, why did I become an engineer? I had 6 uncles that worked in the Brooklyn Navy Yard in all the different trades.
So Joe, why did my 3 sons all become engineers? Because they participated in FIRST Robotics from the time we were in kindergarten.
Yeah,
I mean, realistically, I have 1 degree in chemistry, but he hasn't done chemistry ever, except as an intern. So it is there, and there are programs, but not everyone wants to participate in them.
Well, I think what happens though is it has to start earlier. I think, for
Let's just
example,
say kindergarten.
yeah,
I don't think they have this anymore in elementary school. Because my kids weren't exposed to any engineering robotics program.
not until high school.
Middle school.
Middle school.
Is it middle school now?
And they do have some programs. Youth Service Bureau has some programs in robotics. So my kids were lucky because my husband ran
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah.
But,
But the way I look at it is, wiring up a basic electric circuit. You can do that when you're 10 years old. I'm going to do it with my grandchildren. Today we live in the land of computers, right? As they're a little older, let them assemble the basic components and boot up a computer. Teach them how to work with wood. Teach them how to work with metal. I think that's where it has to begin. Because if we don't do that, we got nothing. And we can't just all trade paper. I really feel that a manufacturing economy is where it's at.
Yeah, or work on just computers where we do nothing. What are we doing?
Are we going to talk about metrics or not?
Okay, so I'm just
so the
thinking.
metric was the outflow. We are talking about the metric.
We are. The outflow is
Distribution and outflow.
So Gene, your 3 boys, where did they end up? Where are they living?
Well, I don't want her to share that
Oh, okay.
on here, so we could talk about that outside of the meeting.
Sure.
So one thing, I was just thinking of, and I don't know how much this metric will help, but the school does report, the number of students from year to
True,
year.
okay.
So it's just a small metric and doesn't tell you that much.
Mm-hmm. So we have the grade levels, and I think, Scott, we have age levels by decade, like 40 to 49-year-olds and 50 to 59.
Well, this shows it in a group over 4 years,
Okay.
so, but it looks like, no, it will just show the age distribution, so yeah, there's kids.
Okay.
But the biggest group was 50 to 59 and 60 to 69, in Oldvine,
Yeah.
so, yeah, people come here and retire.
Well,
Yeah.
it fluctuates over years. If you look around at different neighborhoods, you can see that they, where Mona and I live next door to each other. Our neighborhood was built originally when I first moved here 30 years ago. Now, for a while, it was no one had any kids because they were all out of college, and it's rejuvenated, as has the one next to us, which when we moved in here 30 years ago was all retirees.
On Jericho.
Yes.
Yeah, my
So-
neighborhood's turning over now.
So I
Yeah.
think there is that transition, and it slows.
And I think home buyers, and I remember Terry Lewis talking to this last year, their first home purchase is now like age 35 or so. It's not couples marrying and buying a first home around 28 years old or 25 years old or 35 or so, buying their first house. So I have population by age group under housing market, which we're going to talk about when MJ's back.
Mhm.
So we do have it captured there. I don't know if we need it. I mean, we could.
Right, and you have the 10-year census, which also goes along with that in that same
Mhm.
category.
Okay.
So John wanted the second one.
Okay, let's take a look at that, and we'll just tackle that one tonight and seek adjournment. Okay, light industrial distribution district remains attractive. How are we able to measure how well that Hatchet Hill, Vista Park area is doing? That's our light industrial distribution district zone. That labor economic index number, that was something, Scott, that I
I
had.
thought that was just in industrial, though. Those numbers, those numbers that they have, I think, is just overall, it's not broken into industry.
Okay.
Scott, years ago, when I first came to Connecticut, Moody's used to publish industrial guides, and it had unbelievable statistics in there. I mean, the libraries had them. I used to go to the B.B. Griffith Noyes Library and get them there. And you go into the industrial guide, and it had, like, Connecticut by town, what industries,
Interesting.
what number of workers, what square footage of factories.
That's gotta be online somewhere. We don't have the
I don't
library
know, you
somewhere.
had to pay for it, so there's probably a paywall
Yeah.
online.
So I'm looking at the comprehensive economic development strategy for the River Cog,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and there's a section about private employment sectors, and
Mhm.
and I don't know if it breaks it out by town, but it's using information from BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I don't know what BEA is.
You know, the
Economic
Moody's,
analysis, maybe.
the
Yeah.
Moody's categorized it by I think it was SIC code of the business.
So then they have industry concentrations, manufacturing, education services, arts and entertainment, again, BLS info.
Because I just remember
And
that,
then workforce and population, and it has like a map where it shows higher and lower densities of job concentration, different wages and different, it's basically regional, but I don't know how, and I don't know if it breaks it out by town.
We need to find out what
Yeah.
their source was for that. And then how do we, I mean, is it just going to be calling people, finding out, are their buildings fully occupied? Is there land for sale? I don't think there's any
Somebody
land
in
for
the
sale
town
out there.
track that at all? Like, somebody working with
You should be able to go to a service called CoStar, which has residential, commercial, and probably can track that by zip code.
Oh, okay,
So MJ might be able to get that.
okay. One of her frustrations is there are a lot of sales or leasing that goes on privately, they don't. But, okay, so we'll ask MJ for that.
Also, my personal way of judging prosperity of the area is to drive through it. So there are a lot of cars parked there, they're doing their paint business. Well, it's not just local, that's a New England wide, marine services. Similarly, what's going on with G? Whatever happened to sorry, just dropping out the name like Callahan's.
Oh, yeah, Callaway's.
Callaway Turtle.
Right.
Hey, I'm fortunate that Callaway died, but, that is a business that doesn't just sell fast Corvettes to old line guys. It's a national company. There was a company there for a pretty good while that sold piping and valves and what's this yard, like an open yard full of piping and valve stuff.
So
That's a business which is located here because we have the spaces near the highway.
Right. I know when the fire marshal needed to know how many employees were in who our largest employers were and how many employees they had, I had to go on the phone and call the HR department of like Kellogg and different places to get.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a number in the town hall that we could
I might
utilize.
observe that the location of Kellogg there did not come easily. They wanted to move there, and there was a significant rejection effort by the neighborhood before it got its various approvals and promised that it would put up berms and plantings and the like and turn the lights down at night. They could have just said, we'll go with this.
The other thing we have to keep in mind with that exit 71 industrial area is that exit is getting reconfigured in the coming years. And I don't know what that's going to mean for that, if anything.
I just looked at with alarm at the map showing where the route was going to go, and I said, what? What's going to happen here? But it didn't say anything about its results. It was all about traffic.
Okay. And I don't know the timing on that. I don't know if they're waiting for that east line work to be done before they start tearing apart exit 71 and 72. They're somehow combining the Rocky Neck, thank you, connector with exit 71 into one exit. So you know how you're getting off that exit and people are merging. You go driving south, 95 south, yeah. Okay. All right. I guess I'm going to say let's have some homework, and if anyone thinks of good ways to measure how well that industrial distribution district or zone is doing, you can email me during the month or bring it to the next meeting, and we'll add it in here as a measure.
Is that the only area that is?
That's our only. It's called the Light Industrial Distribution Zone.
Okay.
LI-/D. And we don't have other industrial zones. We have marine zones for, like the marinas and that sort of thing. And we have commercial zones and neighborhood commercial zones. Neighborhood commercial zones are, the Shore Road and then where.
And Route 1 by Latesville.
Yeah, by Latesville. Those are the two neighborhood commercial zones.
Mike Leach at RECO, Mike used to be member of this commission years ago, could probably do that right off the top of his head. Because he keeps track. And he's a nice fellow.
Yes.
What about the road, like in Soundview? Like, what's that road?
That is the Soundview, there's another word.
Village.
Village District, thank you.
It has a village.
Yeah. And then Halls Road is, I think, a business district.
Right.
And that's all of us.
But it is commercial, and that's why there's no housing.
Right, C-30s.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Any other business?
Well, we
New or
have
other?
our,
Oh, thank you.
ribbon cutting,
How
right?
did that fall off of
So,
the
yes,
agenda? Did I walk right past
I
it?
don't see it on the agenda.
That's very strange. Okay, yes, openings, closings, and ribbon cuttings. We have the ribbon cutting, thank you, on Saturday at 11 o'clock at Rand Automotive. Very nice couple, family-owned business, and he's had a soft opening. He officially opened last week, and he's very busy. So they're very, very happy so far over there.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
Did that, to your knowledge, did that property require deep remediation?
I don't know, because they're leasing the property from the
That's not a
owners.
criticism, by the way.
Right, yeah.
Question.
Yeah, I don't know the extent of the remediation they did. I know there was
And
some.
it could be related to the use,
Right,
right?
yeah.
If you're using it as also automotive, you may not.
They're using the surface.
Correct.
I think.
All right. If there's no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Ms. Mona?
Okay.
Do we have a second? Okay, Jeff? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposing adjourning?
No.
All right, thank you.